Hello everybody, it's Scott O'Mato back for part 5 of my series on the Dooglamoo Cities mod for Minecraft. In the first few videos we looked at how to locate an abandoned city, how the cities are laid out a little bit and the structure of a basic building, and then we looked at the farm block because the farm block is going to be one of the first ones that you'll want to use, and then in the next video I covered the city planning guide. But I want to back up just a little bit and get into a little bit more technical detail on the grid that's used in Dooglamoo Cities. I tried to explain it a little bit in the farming block, but it's kind of a hard concept to understand, but it's super, super important that you understand it. So I'm going to attempt again in this video to explain it a little better in this slab world that I have here. So let's take a look. All right, so we should have a good understanding of chunks now, so you can use F3 and G to see your actual chunk boundaries that you have, and a chunk is a 16 by 16 area in Minecraft. You can also use the NEI mod and have F9 to show chunk boundaries, and we'll use those for this video here. Now, blocks themselves, as it's shown in the city planning guide here, take up a certain amount of area. And there's kind of the outdoor industries like the farm, which take up a 32 by 32, the lumber mill 32 by 32, ranch 32 by 32. But a mine shaft is 16 by 16. Quarry is 32 by 32, fishery, all of those. So I won't go over all of them. And then the garden also is 16 by 16. So you can see here I've broken them down according to their size. So of the manufacturing industries, these are the ones that take up 8 by 8. So the bakery, the carpenter, the textile, blacksmith, stonemason. And then the 16 by 16 are the mine shaft and the garden. These are the resource industries. And then the farm, the lumber mill, the ranch, the quarry, the fishery, takes up the 32 by 32. So those are the three types: 8 by 8, 16 by 16, 32 by 32. Now, when something is a 16 by 16, which is probably the easiest to understand, then wherever you place it inside a chunk, any chunk, it's going to take up the whole chunk area. So we'll do that, and we'll see from the red box that it's going to take up the whole chunk area. Again, it doesn't matter where you place it within that chunk. It's still going to take over the chunk boundaries. All right. So it makes no difference whatsoever where it's placed in the chunk. It's going to take up the whole chunk. Now, if you're building something, then you need to be aware of where you place the block, because it will may be covered up by some of the building, but it is within the chunk boundary. All right. So if I go on the outside of a chunk here, you can see my corners, and then I've outlined the chunk. It's going to go inside that chunk. All right. So the actual boundary that it's showing is one overlap. If you notice that, it's overlapping a little bit, but so those are the 16 by 16, and there's only the mine shaft and the garden that have that. So technically, if you had enough lighting, a garden could fit into a building. And I suppose a mine shaft could go down below the building. Those are the 16 by 16. Now, the 8 by 8 ones, which we've looked at here, they take up a corner of the chunk. Okay, just one single corner in that 8 by 8 area. So 4 of them can fit within the chunk. And that's the same way as the offices are built. The offices are 8 by 8. Their actual dimensions are 6 by 6, but they have the border around them. But that's how you could fit 4 in a chunk. So when you have these 8 by 8 blocks, you can put, if you had the 16 by 16 building, which would be like the tower, the large tower, the warehouse, then you can have 4 of these per floor. And they can be placed not in the same area. Like if I tried to place one here and I tried to place one there, it's going to say the areas are already in use. But if I went and placed one on another corner, then it's fine. It accepts it. And if I place it on the other corner, it accepts it. And if I place it anywhere within this other corner, anywhere within it, then it will define the corner and it will accept it. So you can have 4 of these 8x8, which are generally the resource industries. You can have 4 per floor. Now, another thing you can do is, because of that, is place them in the center in this pattern where you could have 4 different types of industries. Oh, because, yeah, it's placed there, so it's here, here, there. So I actually placed my blocks wrong, offset by 1. But you can place 4 side by side, is what I'm trying to demonstrate for that. So really it should be this. That. The stone bricks. The slab. And I'll just leave that in the video because, again, it's important to understand, but in your actual practice, you just need to place them in the center to do that. All right, so looking at the 32 by 32, which are some of the more difficult to understand how they work, again, we want to understand the concept of even number and odd number chunks. So I explained that some in the farm video, but up in the left-hand corner, I have the Baddies coordinates mod set into the chunk numbering mode. And here I'm at world center, essentially. So I am now in the 0, 0 chunk. So I'm standing on block 15 of the X chunk of C0, which is chunk 0. On the Z, I'm standing on block 0 of chunk 0. Right? So you can see that as I move in the X direction, then my block number increases or decreases actually. So this would be the first block of that chunk here. So now I'm standing on block 1, block 0, chunk 0 of both the X and the Y. So this is the 0, 0 point of the world. If you look in the journey map, it's X0, Z0. So if I were to place, say, the farm block here, you'll see that the farm block is moving to cover this whole chunk area here. And what it's doing is it's using this as an even block. So if I went and placed another one here at the end of this one, it would do the same thing. It would just move over those 4 chunks. So it's a 32 by 32 area covering 4 chunks. If I placed it here on an odd number block, odd number chunk, I should say, then I'm going to be in the middle of it. And that's actually how we laid out our farm before. So I will be standing at the middle location of where the 2 chunks, I would be spanning the chunks basically with them in front of me because I'm in an odd number. And it doesn't matter where I place it within that chunk or within any of the chunks of that 4 group. It's always going to encompass the same area because it's going to the first even numbered chunk and lining it up. So it's really lining up with this chunk here. Okay, so it's going to the first even number 1, and that's why that if I go this way, it's going to start here, whereas if I went to this chunk, then I will be in the middle of it there. All right, and the same way going backwards, that if I go to these chunks, then I'm going to be in the center of it now, the very center. So that's the same as me placing it here. right? So it's your relationship to where you are to the even numbered chunks in both directions. It'll find the two chunks that are even numbers that are closest to you from where you're standing. So whenever you place a block, if you're on an even chunk, then it's gonna be in front of you. If you're on an odd chunk, you're gonna be in the middle of it. All right. If you're in an even chunk where you place it, then it's going to be to your left, I guess, always, which I guess would be toward the east. Because the chunk numbers increase when you're going this way. Okay. And they decrease when you're going west. So they're becoming negative numbers now. So that's how that works. Again, it doesn't matter where you place it in the chunk. So basically, you're either going to be in the middle of it here, looking in front of you, or it's going to be to your left, or if you're in the odd chunk, it's going to be to your right. Okay, if you place it to the edge. If you're in a spanning chunks, you're going to be in the center of it. So if you place down and you're in the center of it, then you know that, okay, I'm standing in the middle of how the chunks are going to lay out. Okay, so that's basically how the 32 by 32 grid works. And as we mentioned in the farm block, many of them, like the farm for sure, has a border around it in each chunk. Each chunk has a border, and so it's using the active center point. But anyway, I hope that helps explain how the chunks work, and that your placement is not quite as crucial as you think it would be. It's not in relationship to where you place the block. It's in relationship to how the chunks are laid out. So it is very, very important in the Dooglamoo Cities mod to be able to visualize your chunks, to be able to see them in an overlay, and you can even go along and put markers of some type or outline them like I have here. So I hope that is clear. Please let me know in the comments if it is. If not, I will try again to explain it in a way where it can really click for everybody, because it's a very important concept, because the whole mod is based around laying out things along these grids, and how you do your cities and your buildings and your industries and roads and all that is completely depending upon how these grids are laid out. It's easier to see, obviously, in a slab world like this, and a little bit more difficult in an actual Minecraft world. But hopefully that gives you the information you need. And I thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you like it. This is Scott O'Mato. Thanks for watching. Bye. Have a great day.